Yo, what's going on YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we are going to go into a little bit more of a controversial topic today, as we're taking a look at Jake Virtanen. Now, if you guys don't remember who Jake Virtanen is, or maybe you remember when he was drafted and things kind of fell off from there, we're going to take a look at Jake Virtanen, what's happened to him, and the potential of him maybe making a return to the National Hockey League. So we're going to go over a little bit of his biography and kind of where he came from. Jake Virtanen from Langley, British Columbia. He was drafted in the 2014 NHL draft in the first round by, of course, his hometown team. At 6th overall, he was selected by the Vancouver Canucks. He spent 6 seasons in the National Hockey League, which combined for 300 games in the league and 100 points on the dot over those 317 games in the big leagues. Jake Virtanen, though, is one of those guys that has grown a lot of controversy, especially over the last, I would say, 2 years. And the first thing was really more so on the ice, and then it got more to off-ice stuff. So in 2019-2020, Jake Virtanen had a terrible season. He finished the season, which was a shortened COVID season, right? That was right before they got into the playoff bubble. In 69 games with the Canucks, he had only 36 points, which, if you think about it, that's still on pace over an 82-game schedule. That's almost a 50-point player, which is still very, very good. So, again, it's context, but still pretty good. Then you get to the next season, which is the 2020-2021 season, and that's where he really struggled. In only 38 games that season, he only managed to put up 5 points for the Vancouver Canucks. Then we started to hear stuff in 2021, and this is May 17th, 2021. And the article is Vancouver Canucks Jake Virtanen accused in lawsuit of assault. We'll just say that. And you guys know where this is coming from. So apparently Jake Virtanen had been accused in a lawsuit of assaulting a certain individual, which happened to be a woman, in a hotel 4 years ago. The suit in Kelowna, British Columbia, alleged that Virtanen took the woman to a hotel in West Vancouver back in September of 2017, and obviously there was assault there. She had repeatedly said no and pleaded with him to stop. And obviously this is where kind of everything rolls into where we are today. So that was really the first bit of news. Now that summer, the Vancouver Canucks were then going to buy out. They had waived the contract and then eventually bought out Jake Virtanen. So it did not help that Virtanen had a bad season that year. And that is obviously that's something that has to be mentioned. I mean, he had 5 points in 38 games, right? He did not play well for the Canucks. But then we get to a point where, now comes the court date. Now, here's the problem. The court date wasn't until July of 2022, which was a year later. But a lot happened in that year that accusation had come out. So like I mentioned, the accusation comes out in May. That summer, Jim Benning and the Vancouver Canucks buy out his contract. He wasn't playing that well. It was kind of a not-so-great contract to begin with. He had been bought out. He ends up going overseas to play in the KHL. He could not find a job in North America for the 2021-22 season, which is this prior season, where he did fairly well in the KHL, picking up 16 points in 36 games. But here's the problem. So now, July 26, 2022, just over a year later, a jury on Tuesday found former Vancouver Canucks forward Jake Virtanen not guilty of those charges against him after a week of salacious testimony. Virtanen, 25, wept openly when the verdict was read in the Supreme Court of British Columbia. He clutched his head in his hands and was comforted by his lawyers, while several friends and family seated in the front row of the courtroom whispered yes. Virtanen and his lawyers declined to comment as they left the court. So obviously, there was some he said, she said, and I think it came to the point where they couldn't find enough evidence to say that this was true. Now, there are plenty of people that will come out here and say that, again, money will kind of shade him from what's happening here, right? He had a good lawyer, and this and that, and that's true. But we've seen very powerful rich people also, that doesn't matter, right, how much money you have. His career earnings are a little over $7.5 million, which, again, in today's world really isn't that much. But for the average person making $100K at the most a year, $50K a year, $7 million in the bank doesn't sound too bad. So when you look at Virtanen, is this a guy that can come back to the National Hockey League? Now, I think there is reason to say he can come back to the NHL. I could see it on a PTO, and I could see it on a team he probably doesn't want to play for, unfortunately, right? Like, I hate to say it, but I look at the teams that maybe a team that's not a big hockey market, right, that doesn't have, if they sign him, there's not going to be a ton of buzz. So you could say no to Vancouver. You could say no to teams like Toronto, Edmonton. They're going to stay away from him. But if you're talking about a team like the Chicago Blackhawks, and I know they've gone under a lot of turmoil recently, but the Chicago Blackhawks, who probably aren't going to be very good this year, the Arizona Coyotes, the Dallas Stars could be a questionable team maybe to pick up some depth there. I don't even think the Seattle Kraken, but maybe the Kraken, right? You got to look for a fan base that, not to say that they're not hardcore devoted fans, but what's going to get the least amount of buzz and negative attention? Because you are going to take negative attention for signing him because of all of this stuff, despite the fact that he is not guilty in court. So it's kind of one of those things that, unfortunately, what Jake Virtanen's biggest disadvantage is, if you look at his career points compared to most players, right, that are already playing in the AHL right now, right, that put up similar numbers and can't find an NHL job, if I take the guy that's an AHL up-and-comer that's putting up similar numbers to Jake, or Jake Virtanen, who has this history, chances are most teams are going to go for the AHL up-and-coming guy that doesn't have this on the record. So when it's already a game of inches and who gets the contract and who doesn't, Jake Virtanen has one big disadvantage, even though it really shouldn't be, right? And that's the problem, is what should and shouldn't be doesn't really matter in dollars and cents and the PR for the team. You know, the NHL, these are NHL squads that are trying to win. They're trying to put food on the table to keep their jobs. And if Jake Virtanen is that much better, they will find a way to get him in. But I don't know if Jake is that good in that sense. Because you look at, like I said, he had a pretty good season in 2020. But the season after that, his last season in the National Hockey League, was not good at all. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of Jake Virtanen maybe making a return to the NHL? And does it even make sense? You know, I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, you know, he did this and that, but we can't really go off of that because, again, in court, they ruled that he did not. So if it's just purely hockey and you add this as like an outside thing, is Jake good enough to play in the National Hockey League? So let me know what you guys think. I'm sure there will be lots of comments that agree and disagree, and I'm all for it. Just like I said, be civil, or at least as civil as possible. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.